All right, welcome everybody to the Jim Acosta Show. It is Tuesday, and as you can see, my big guest today is James Carville. James, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Always love doing your show. Straight shooter, talk English, my kind of guy.
Exactly, right back at you. And my headline on today is that Trump's cruel summer could lead to a big MAGA bummer next year. I mean, they seem to think that they're on cloud nine right now, having passed this big debt bill, a big boulder of bullshit, as I've called it a couple of times. But when I was watching the votes come down in the Senate earlier today, James, I did not catch many high fives or attaboys. I mean, it was more like aye and bye. They voted for this thing, and it looks like they're getting the hell out of town. I don't think that they were too pleased with how this legislation was looking, and I think some of them are afraid this is going to come and bite them in the butt next year. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the data analyst on CNN, Harry Eaton or something like that, he literally, I thought he was going to have a meltdown about how unpopular this is. He tried to put it in some historical context, and he said, there's that. He's a very kind of energetic guy. I think the longer it sits out there, the more it rots. So now they had this excruciating thing in the Senate. They get through by Vance's vote, and then it got to go to the House, and then they got a conference committee. And I think the Democrats are doing something really smart. Just drag it out as long as you can. Let this head of lettuce sit in the sunshine, and it just rots the more it's out there.
And apparently, Trump was out there saying we might not get this done by July 4th.
Would have been worse probably if they can't get something, if it just kind of falls apart and people just have a sense that, but it's like average of 26 points underwater. How can that not help you? I don't know, but that's a lot. 26 points is a lot. I don't care if you know what you're talking about. And it just, the more it sits there, the less people like it. And one of the things is just get all of the quotes all of the Republicans have said about what a horrible bill it is.
Right.
I voted for this, but I hate it.
Well, and for the first time in a long time, Susan Collins expressed concern and actually voted against something, because usually she expresses the concern and then she doesn't vote for it.
She wouldn't have voted against it if she was the last vote.
Well,
Murkowski. Well, look, you're more. I'll let you. I'll take the bullet for you. Yeah. But Susan, there's no way Susan Collins would have been the vote to kill it. No, I mean she pulls that for the last 30 years.
But as a Democratic strategist, James, I mean, you've looked at this kind of stuff for a long time. What element of this do you think is the most toxic for the Republicans? Is it the Medicaid cuts?
Actually, Del Bope does the Harvard Youth Poll. Now, this is among 18 to 30, but I can't believe that what kills people is the veterans cuts. I'm not exactly sure. I think people think there's a certain element of fairness. Hey, look, we told these people if you do this, and we do this, and but for whatever, obviously the Medicaid. I mean, the amount of lobbying that's going to be going on by these rural hospitals as this thing goes forward is going to be just breathtaking. But I think that if you have a chance to, when you have a chance to accentuate a couple things, I would definitely accentuate the cuts to veterans. And we're turning our back on our own people. And if they do that, and I think of people's attitude, well, if they do that to veterans, what would they do to me? Okay, I mean, like, gee, and of course the anything healthcare cut stuff. Health insurance, anything in that is going to be enormous, and I would say it's going to make life more expensive for tens of millions of Americans are just going to have to be paying more. They're going to be paying more for health insurance. They're going to be paying more as a result of tariffs, because we saw it in New York. The cost of living, we saw it, and that's why Harris lost. That's why all these Western governments fell. Is the cost of living, and they're just making things more expensive for people.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think that this Trump bill, it's going to end up being toxic next year, because healthcare costs are going to go up. A lot of different costs are going to go up, and
it's going to be more than toxic, Jim. And where it's going to really be toxic is going to be this November in Virginia.
Yeah,
There's going to be a lot of talk about it. and you're not going to be able to say, well, it's a federal issue. It doesn't apply to us. That's
Right.
not going to work. That's not going to work. So, I agree. It's like I said, it's 26 points underwater, and every day it stays out there, it goes down another point. So just leave it out there for a while.
And the other issue is it's got to go back over to the House now, and you've got all these Freedom Caucus guys who they talk a big game about the national debt and everything. They were talking about this back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was balancing budgets and so on, and they're still talking about it. They're just not going to vote on it. It's sort of what did they used to say about yellow dog Democrats? They bark, but they don't bite. Maybe that applied to somebody else. I can't remember. It's too far back. But these Freedom Caucus guys bark, but they don't bite.
I think that Chip Roy might be the greatest blowhard in the history of the United States Congress. He's always outraged. He always can't take it anymore. And he always gets slapped around. Some of these, they're going to have to round us and stuff. And remember, it goes back to the House, and they're not going to vote the straight Senate version, so they'll pass some modification of that, and it's got to go to like conference committee. It's got to go back. The more you drag it out, the better. Make them go through every hoop that they have to go through.
Yeah,
but I don't think that these House guys are just going to take. What they're going to try to do is say, look, just pass the Senate version. Whip it really hard. And I don't know, I'm not savvy enough a congressional observer to know that, but that's what they desperately would like to do right now. Because if they make changes, they got to go to Congress, they got to go back to the Senate, and, it becomes a big mess.
Yeah, all right. Well, I got some of the boring shit out of the way. I got to ask you, what do you think of this Elon Musk business? He's come back out of the woodwork. He's saying, I'm going to start a new party. Do you buy any of that? He says he's going to put money behind this Tom Massey guy in Kentucky. Trump's threatening to deport Elon Musk today. I mean,
he's threatening to deport everybody. They'll probably deport me. You just knew this was going to happen from the beginning. I mean, the one thing is, Musk might be the richest person in the world, and Trump may be the president of the United States. They're the two of the most immature, childish people in that kind of behavior you could imagine. And you don't expect that two children, if you're in office for 3 months, that it's going to end well. And it didn't end well. I don't know if I don't think he's going to be able to start a third party, but he'll probably, Massey, for whatever it is, the guy may be, I mean, he don't budge at all. So, I mean, he may fund or like surgical types, but I don't see that. And of course, deficits have always substantially higher under Republicans and Democrats, but I'm tired of saying that. It's like talking to a wall. Last time the budget was balanced was 1998 when Bill Clinton was president. But they got a lot of baseball left to play in this. I promise you. This plane has not landed yet.
But the last time they were, Trump and Elon Musk were throwing these threats back and forth with one another. Elon Musk brought up Jeffrey Epstein. It sounds like Trump's saying he's going to take Doge and go after Elon Musk's subsidies and that sort of. This has the potential to get very personal, very nasty, and very costly. And I just have to wonder, does Elon Musk know something? I don't know. Maybe I should.
But you know what? Go at it, guys. I'll just be a spectator here. Just have fun. Let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Let's talk about anything we want to. We don't mind. This is like some version of, it's cutting into my porn habit, to tell you the truth, Jim. It's like more entertaining.
Let's get that stuff out there,
I
thought that the far right wanted to get to the bottom of this Jeffrey Epstein stuff.
Let's go. Let's
have
go.
at it.
Let's get it out. Yeah, somebody now, they said there's 10,000 other pages. I just read the Tam Bondi or something. I can't keep up with it, but I'm a big spectator sport, Really
it's almost like they opened up a closet at Mar-a-Lago and said, "What the hell is this?"
A lot coming out.
All right, you mentioned this just a few moments ago, so let's talk about this, because I do want to hear what you have to think about this. It's part of the reason why I reached out to you. The Zohran Mamdani guy, comes out of nowhere, New York City. Andrew Cuomo, of course, had to leave office in disgrace, tried to mount a political comeback, sort of felt like Anthony Weiner. But this Mamdani guy just steamrolls him. And a lot of young people came out and voted. And as you were saying, this affordability issue, we saw this last year, still a very potent issue.
So one of the interesting things, somebody sent me in some data. I assume that it's good. I've looked at it, and it was something I knew to be credible. The turnout by age is exactly what you see in 98% of the elections in the United States. That actually, the younger you were, the more likely you were to turn out.
Right.
That's amazing. What the election really proves is really still the economy stupid. All right. He was talking about what I refer to as the cost of living. I don't like to use the word inflation. I like the term cost of living.
Yeah. And
you can imagine what it's like if you live in New York, particularly a young person, you're not getting paid. You take the mass transit, they jack it up another 50 cents. It costs you God knows how much a year. The rents are excruciating, that everything. And what the guy was doing was talking about something that people cared about.
Yeah.
And it felt, and I think that, and he had energy he could speak. It was really amazing to me is the number of my line, establishment Democrats that say, I would have voted for that guy. Like even my wife says, that guy's got real talent. He's got real charm. Steve Bannon was saying that. I'm a little, let's see what happens when he, going forward. But he's got a touch. He's got it sort of figured out. When he goes on TV, he seems very calm. But this is a tough job here, and I'm calling me skeptic on city-owned grocery stores. But if you try it, it doesn't work with it. It's not the greatest.
But you're impressed. I mean, and you think that Democrats should not say, hey, he's too radical or whatever. Yeah.
What I'm kind of more impressed with is that other people are impressed. And not that this is just some people said, hey, this guy's got some talent. I also think that he focused on what mattered to people. And they've tried to say, well, you said this about the Palestinians, or you said this about that, or you this about, and he said, he just kept talking about cost of living. And I guess a lot of people that I know are really impressed by his demeanor and his presentation. I'm kind of impressed by his strategic single-mindedness, which is hard to do. It's just his ability to kind of stay, in spite of everything else, to stay in that lane. And it's, no one wants to cover that because it's not glamorous. What's glamorous is he's, got the youth vote out. He's multi-ethnic. He's multicultural. He's everything you can think of. And it's a sweeping new thing in politics. He talked about the cost of living. It's not people's everyday quotidian life. There's nothing new. That's always been around in politics. And I think he had great discipline.
Well, and he was asked on Meet the Press about some of the things that have been hurled in his direction, and some of these guys in the White House going after him, Trump calling him a communist and so on. And he took that and he turned it around and brought it right back, just as you were saying, James, right back to that affordability issue. And the reason why they're calling me these names is they don't want me to come back and talk about these issues that New Yorkers care about. And I thought what I saw there was, I just saw sort of young, raw political talent, and you can't substitute that.
I have to tell you, I'm really impressed with his strategic focus. And the best politicians get talked about, they get diverted. I can't believe you said that about my mother, or you did this, or and he doesn't get diverted. He doesn't. And that's a real skill, and there's stuff to learn here. But a lot of people are impressed with his verbal skills also.
And so what are the lessons that should be drawn from it? I know it's New York, and people say, oh, it's New York. You can't draw that many lessons from it. Andrew Cuomo, an establishment figure who you would think would have enough of a political machine to be able to mount a comeback, fell flat. I mean, just fell flat on his face. What does this say about the Democratic Party? Because I know you were concerned that the party was in a lot of trouble. But if you've got young guys like Mamdani coming on the scene, Maybe it's not as bad as it was thought.
Let's also talk about the two gubernatorial elections in states in pretty significant states. Okay, in New Jersey,
Mikey
and
Sherrill.
Virginia.
Yeah.
In the Virginia elections, implications of that are going to be huge. Okay, because it's
always a bellwether. Yeah,
it's always and can I tell you? I think that Spanberger's going to win. I don't even think it's going to be that
it's
close.
not going to be close, right?
It's not going to be that close. So, my good friend, the Speaker of the Don Scott, points out that there are, I think, 8, maybe 9, but something like, I'm going to just go with 8 Republican-held House of Delegates seats that in districts that voted for Harris. Those are not going to stand up to this tsunami that they're going to fall. And so now it'll come in that Spanberger wins, but it'll also, the headline number on changes in the state house will be shocking to people also. Yeah. And I think that in New Jersey too. So just remember, these are, if you look around the Democratic Party, these are the kinds of people that are winning elections and winning primaries.
Yeah.
And I understand because it's such a great story and it's New York City, but New York City is not the rest of the country in many ways.
Yeah.
And the party nominees in other areas are quite remarkable.
Yeah. And James, I got to ask you because, Trump is down there in Florida today. He's opening up this Alligator Alcatraz, gulag, Everglades gulag. And how should Democrats message on this? Is it just sort of an issue that hopelessly tilts in the favor of Republicans? We're seeing some polls show that this issue is not working that well for Trump now.
No.
We're absorbing these images and seeing what the ICE raids are adding up to. And it's not all criminals. They're going after the grandmothers and so on, the guys at the 7-Eleven looking for day work. And they're turning their thumbs down on this stuff. How should Democrats message on this, in your view?
So this is just my human reaction. I'm sure if I sat on it for 24 hours, I could come up with be a more political reaction. But human, these are actually human beings. They actually, and many of them just wanted to come here, to have an opportunity to go to work. In fact, most of them. You're talking about putting them in with alligators, and I hope that some of the religious community, I know this is not who Pope Leo is, and I hope people just speak out and say, wait a minute. There's nothing in your laws that said you have to degrade human beings. That's just not. You can be for border enforcement, or you can be for some controls on the border. I just it's, as an 80-year-old, it strikes me as grossly inhumane. And I'm sure that if given time, I could think of a more articulate political answer. But
yeah.
Talking about alligators, and I grew up around alligators. Trust me, I don't like them.
No. And Trump was joking about it earlier today. He was asked about it, and he said, "Well, these prisoners, they're going to have to learn how to run not in a straight line." And he was sort of mocking the idea and kind of delighting in the idea of people being eaten by alligators. There's obviously something wrong with the man. Yeah.
The cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And two. Yeah. A significant number, but I refuse to believe a majority of people are like that. And I just, like I said, I don't get a better political answer for it, but just as a moral answer, it's the idea is just hideous, beyond hideous.
And so what are your thoughts? I mean, looking ahead to the midterm cycle, what do you see? I see, I see that this is all going to come back and bite him in the ass. I really do.
We're going to have a good midterm. I don't. It's hard to imagine that we don't. I mean, how good? I don't know, but it'll be good. The one thing I would say to people that listen to this, without a presidential candidate, it's very difficult to have a message. It's very difficult to have a plan. It's very difficult to have a program. And I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard for people. We got to do something now, and we just don't have the we don't have the majority. We have to work within the calendar that we have. The really good news is we got a lot of really good presidential potential candidates out there that can articulate this. But to ask that the Democratic Party have a message, a unified message, at a time like this is just impossible. You can't deliver that, and that's the bad news. The good news is you don't need one right now. You're going to get one when you get a presidential nominee. And hopefully, we'll have a really articulate and inspiring presidential nominee, of which we have not had since 2012. Jim, I so think personalities and people drive takes more than issues. And when you see big personalities and a big kind of following and able to sell things and articulate things, that's what really draws people into politics. And I think that is somewhat what's drawing people to Mamdani in New York. He has this kind of charm about him, and I don't agree with everything he says, but
I like the way he smiles when he gives a comment.
It's like, looks like a nice guy. Looks like, like to be friends with my children or something. But he's kind of got that. Yeah. But remember, the party is New Jersey and Virginia together. So a lot of people. Those are two pretty big states, probably.
No question about it. And they always say Virginia's a bellwether. And a lot of people are excited. I've talked to some Democratic donor types who are very excited about Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey. They see her as part of the future too. And so I agree with you. You don't need it. I mean, to me, the message is, if the Democratic Party were searching for messages, we are not this country. We are not who this guy is. And it seems to me that is.
Yeah, I
good thing I'm on this side of the.
I think people I think we're unified. We're unified in a lot of things. Actually, we're really unified in our contempt for the current occupant. But going forward, if anybody is thinking of running for president in 2028, this is my advice: don't even mention his name. Run and say the future starts January 20th, 2029. And the only way we're looking back is if there were any criminal acts performed. Other than that, this train is leaving the station. This country is ready to move on an entirely different direction. I'm not going to be bothered by this unpleasantness or something like that. Just be dramatic. It's not. We're moving ahead. We're forging a future here. It's going to be different. I promise you. And the only thing we cannot not look back on potential criminality, but that's it.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And Obama, I think, had some of that. I remember in 2008, it wasn't about Bush. It was about.
Well, it wasn't this. It was, but I mean, it was kind of inspiring language. But the mood is going to be it's going to be 2008 doubled. Yeah. Oh, but I just want to get out of here. I just want this over.
One other thing, there was a question we just popped up from one of our viewers, and they want to know, do you worry about vote tampering in the midterms? Do you worry about Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and some of these types monkeying around with the midterms and the way we do elections in this country? I mean, with what they're trying to pull these days, they don't want accountability. They don't want Democrats getting the gavels in the House and the Senate, be able to hold hearings and start impeachment proceedings and so on. I mean, you worry about that, James?
In the short word, yes. In the longer word, very. Okay. And I think what may happen, he's going to see the writing on the wall in Virginia. This is what I think is going to happen. And New Jersey also. And he's going to see retirements, and people are going to start coming in and saying, we're getting ready to lose. I got to change, and I got to get some distance. And he's going to see all that coming. And I don't put anything past him, nothing, to try to call the election off, to do anything you can. He can think of things like that we can't, because we're not accustomed to thinking like that. We always assume there's going to be an election. In your case, how do I cover the election? In my case, how do I affect the election? And we don't think about it. This is a whole new thing. But the person that wrote in on this, people come to me all the time and say, James, I'm really scared. I said, you should be. You have every reason to be scared. Don't kid yourself.
This is scary shit.
That's really scary. Yeah, really scary.
Yeah. And he's already tried to steal one election before. So, I mean, what's to say he's not going to try to steal
But
more?
this is even be more, because he's seeing this coming. He's going to see this coming. And he's going to try to think of something to extricate himself from it.
And I remember, I'll let you go after this. I remember I did a Substack or a podcast a while back, and I had said that, I'm worried that Trump's going to try to run for a third term. And you texted me and you said, Jim, you're so full of shit.
We got to do that. He's not going to run for it.
Just to get that out of the way, you don't think you don't buy any of that shit?
Well, first of all, he's old. He's in terrible health. And I've read the Constitution over and over again. It's no. And the public wouldn't know. I mean, when 2028 gets here, people are going to be so. Right now, he's the lowest approval of any president. Yeah. I think at this point in his presidency, can you imagine the anguish and the desire to get behind? If I had my wish, I wish he would run. I wish the courts would say he can run for a third time, and I wish he'd be the Republican nominee, because we might lose Wyoming, maybe. Maybe
he's going to smell worse than rotten fish.
Oh God! Oh my God!
If Trump cologne ain't going to work on that.
It's not going to happen. But if it did happen, it would be a great thing. They're going to be they're so sick of him now. Can you imagine what it's going to be come 28? No, don't you worry, your little pretty little head about that, darling. I got it all under control.
I know you're not talking about me. I'm too old for that. But I got to say before I let you go, James, I love the LSU gear. I'm so happy that you gave us Jaden Daniels here in Washington.
Oh, God, didn't he make it a difference?
He's something else.
Yeah, and then we won the College World Series, and baseball is a big deal at LSU. Huge deal.
I know it is. Yeah.
So we're excited about everything. Well, thanks a lot, Jim. Enjoyed doing the shows.
Great to see you, James. Thanks a lot. You always bring it. Appreciate it.
Don't worry your pretty little head.
I'll worry my ugly head. I'll definitely do that.
There you go. All right.
See you, James. All right.
Okay.
Thanks. He's a good man, James Carville. James Carville joining us. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that we get the comments from the viewers and the questions from the viewers, because that might have been the most news-making question of this show, was whether or not James is worried that Trump might try to pull some shenanigans up in the 2026 midterms. And I hadn't thought about that very much. I know I talked about the prospect of this the other day. I do certainly worry that he might try to do that. But, to hear that James is kind of thinking along those lines and our viewers are thinking along those lines, it is something we're all going to have to look out for. I do want to stay on the story of the Alligator Alcatraz. And I want to bring in the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, Nikki Fried. If she's there standing by, we'd go ahead and bring her in. But Trump was down there in Florida earlier today, and was doing, of course, his dog and pony show, showing off this thing. And Governor Ron DeSantis, he was there obviously trying to patch things up with Donald Trump and saying, "See, okay, yeah, give me a cabinet position now. I just gave you a gulag in the Everglades." And James is absolutely right when he was talking about this a few moments ago, and that is, it's about the cruelty here. And I'm just hearing that we don't have Nikki Fried just yet. So let me just talk a little bit about. Oh, there she is. There's Nikki Fried. Hey, Nikki, how are you? Good to see you.
Good seeing you too. Thanks for having me on a crazy, crazy day.
It's a crazy day and lots to discuss. And I do want to talk about the budget bill and how that's going to affect Floridians. And we should definitely talk about that. I know you've been getting into that, but I also saw you making some comments about this Alligator Alcatraz. And I mean, I know Florida politics can be crazy, but my God, alligators eating migrants, it's insanity. And what do you think about this?
It's disgusting on so many different levels. I mean, first of all, the inhumanity of the entire thing, that they're profiting off it. The Republican Party of Florida has actually created merch to sell to make money off of this inhumane process. You've got pictures first coming out today that have literally cages where these people are going inside these cages. You've got, the fact that the governor is using old executive emergency powers to go around the people, go around environmentalists, Congress, go around the legislature. And, now I guess he's even recommending, instead of actual due process and with judges, using the National Guard. I mean, we've gone to an all-time low here in Florida and across the country.
Well, and the inhumanity is something that stands out to me too. Obviously, I mean, the cruelty is the point, as James was just saying a few moments ago. And you're right, there is the sort of profiting off of this that is maddening and disgusting. But I have to ask a political question because it's the political nerd in me. How is it that Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump have kissed and made up, and DeSantis is rolling out this Everglades gulag for him? I thought they were pissed at each other. Do you know what's going on? What is happening?
Of course, Ron DeSantis has no friends anymore. He has done so much damage to his reputation, to his friends. The old saying that, like, when you are climbing the ladder and you're stepping on people all the way up, that they are going to watch you fall and do it with joy. And you saw
even
that
with those lifts.
Yeah, exactly. Even with the lifts. But you saw that this legislative session, the Republican Party legislators finally came after him. He had no more friends. So I think that Alligator Alcatraz was his way of getting back into, like, good graces with Trump. So they're singing Kumbaya. Susie Wiles still hates Ron DeSantis.
That's what I thought. Right.
There's no way that, like, Casey DeSantis is running for governor, because Susie's never going to let that happen. So it's smoke and mirrors. But it's Ron DeSantis has no place to go. So.
And forgive me for jumping all over the place here. I also thought the Everglades were protected. And you're not supposed to build a friggin' gulag in there, or a prison, detention facility. I guess that's out the window. We don't care about that anymore. DeSantis, I remember at one time, was somebody who, tried to protect the Everglades, or at least was credited as such. Maybe that was all horse crap, but I mean, this is it's disturbing on so many levels.
Yeah, let's talk about the Everglades. Is one of the natural, like, ecosystems of our state, and we have spent billions upon billions upon billions of state and federal dollars trying to preserve it. The Miccosukee Indians that are down in the Everglades, this is their burial grounds. This is where their ancestors are, and we have done so much to not only restore the Everglades, but the natural preserves around the Everglades. Has our panthers, has natural habitats.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And now we're building this that's going to decimate the environment. And DeSantis all ran in 2018 about protecting the Everglades.
Right.
Endorsements from the Everglades Foundation and Everglades Trust, and all of a sudden, again, it's the kiss the ring of Donald Trump, and all of the environmental aspects go out the window.
Yeah, and the thing that we have to delve into further is the heartlessness of this, the way migrants are being treated all across the country. But in particular, Florida, and I haven't really had the chance to talk about this with someone who knows politics in Florida. I mean, there was, I saw this up until the 2024 election. Cuban Americans, per usual, got behind Donald Trump. You even saw Venezuelans, line up to support Donald Trump. And a lot of what we're seeing in these ICE actions, since Trump came back into office, it hasn't spared Cubans and Venezuelans. And as a matter of fact, just the other day, I was reading this story, I was going to write about it in my Substack, that a 75-year-old Cuban man who's been in this country, I think, since the 1960s, was picked up by ICE in early June, had a heart attack, and died in ICE custody just this past weekend.
Yep.
And how is this breaking down in the Cuban community in South Florida? Or do you have any sense as to whether the politics are changing there? Will Cubans just tolerate anything Donald Trump does? I can't imagine that that's the case.
No, I mean, I think it's a combination of two things. In one, I do think that, the Hispanic community is starting to kind of understand that when they said mass deportations, he was also talking about them. And they're seeing that not only just inhumanity, and I hear a lot about, like, are Democrats changing their philosophy on immigration? And the answer is no. Democrats, even look at the speeches from Bill Clinton and further back, that talks about we need to secure our borders. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We need pathways to citizenship, all of these things. And as past Commissioner of Agriculture for Florida, I spent 4 years, testifying in front of Congress about comprehensive immigration reform, that here in Florida, the top 3 economic drivers of our state all all rely on migrant work, whether it's tourism, it's construction, it's agriculture. And the Hispanic community, the Miami-Dade, more than any other of our Hispanic communities, really believed, based on some of their elected officials, our members of Congress, that all said that they were going to protect them. And what happened is we aren't just going after criminals. We're going after people who are here legally. There are asylum seekers. They've got papers. They're physically going into court and being detained at court. And so you're starting to see a little bit of this opening of the eyes of what actually is happening here in America. But it's also really important for us as Democrats, not just to be like, they're bad, you've been lied to. It's more of, what are we going to do to recognize the beautiful culture of our state and our communities, making sure that we're giving people an economic opportunity to have a job here, bring up family here, call Florida and the United States home. That so many of us, we're all generations away from being immigrants ourselves, and I think that people are starting to wake up. It hasn't quite happened yet in masses, but as soon as our the TPS, which is morally the Haitian community and the parolee status of the Cubans, they start seeing family members and and teachers and people that they've seen at the grocery store for decades, all of a sudden being rounded up and detained by masked men with no identification.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember, I mean, my dad is a Cuban refugee, and, he came in as a refugee to this country, and they didn't throw him back because he would have been thrown back to a communist dictatorship. And it's still a communist dictatorship in Cuba. And so it makes you wonder, what was what were ICE folks doing, holding on to a Cuban 75-year-old migrant who perhaps didn't have his papers all together? They're gonna send him back to a totalitarian country. I'm old enough to remember when we used to give people refugee status or TPS status, and that just seems to be completely out the window.
Yeah, out the window. And what's happening, which is just so disheartening, is that if you happen to be of a darker color, or if you talk, with a Hispanic, accent, which
Right.
and it doesn't even matter, you could be Puerto Rican, and an American citizen, and they're not
grabbing you.
They're grabbing you. They're grabbing you with no explanation, with no ID, no due process. And you're seeing reports coming out of American citizens being detained by ICE. I mean, even the president said today, there's some really bad people that even though they're Americans, maybe we should deport them too. Whatever. Like it's beyond law and order. It is just so dangerous to the stability of our country and the foundation of what makes America the country that we all stand up and fight for. This is contrary to all of that. And growing up in Miami, my back neighbors were Cubans. Their family came into Florida in 1967, heard their horrific stories about the Castro regime. We know what's happening, the crimes and the gangs in Haiti, and sending, and I have, family that are second generation Haitians that are going to be sent home. This is really disturbing to so many of our communities and the foundation of our country.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I guess, Nikki, one of the questions that I have is, what happens to the Democratic Party in the state of Florida? I saw that I had David Jolly on the show recently. He's running. Do you have some hope that perhaps the party is sort of back on the upswing there? If Ron DeSantis can get reelected by the margin that he did the last time around, it made it seem as though, okay, the Democratic Party is in pretty dire straits there. Do you get the sense that things are kind of bending back, the pendulum is swinging back?
We actually launched our project last month called Pendulum.
There you go.
That exact purpose.
I did not know that. I guess that just popped out of my head. Yeah.
Since I became chair in 23, we've had some really amazing wins. Flipping the city of Jacksonville mayor, flipping a county commission seats and city commission seats and state legislator seats. So we're starting to see the unwinding of this 30-year corrupt Republican machine here in our state, because we're talking about the issues that are important to Floridians. Florida's become completely unaffordable, whether it's housing, whether it is healthcare, whether it's just, goods and services every single day. It has become really unaffordable. And the Republican Party just aren't focusing on those issues. This legislative session, they spent more time going after Ron DeSantis' stealing of $10 million from Medicaid to fund attacks against citizen-led initiatives on recreational legalization of cannabis, as well as protection of abortion access. And so we are seeing really people wanting to see something from the Democratic Party, which we are showing them. We are showing up in communities where statewide we've launched this pendulum, which is statewide, year-round, never coming down from organizing, going into our communities, knocking on the doors, listening to the voters. And so we're seeing some of like the unwinding of this issues that we do. We still have a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of people here in our state that are very hungry to see the pendulum swing, and we're going to be the force behind it. And we're seeing that trajectory going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, and when I hear you talking about affordability, I mean, we saw this with the New York mayoral race with Zohran Mamdani. I was talking about this with James Carville just a few moments ago. That was what Carville was zeroing in on, was Mamdani's message discipline when it comes to affordability. And not to get into a whole conversation about him, but getting back to the Republican budget bill, the Trump budget bill, the big, beautiful, whatever I've been calling it. I've been calling it the big boulder of bullshit. But no, I mean, it's kind of amazing. It's sort of mesmerizing that the Republicans went through all this trouble to get this out of the Senate. Now it's going to go back to the House. There's nothing to do with affordability in this legislation. And so they seem to be thinking that none of this is going to come back to haunt them. But when you make healthcare as unaffordable as they're about to make it, I think they're in for a rude awakening, politically speaking. And I have to think you must be looking at certain districts in the state that might be swinging in your direction come 2026.
We had two special elections being part of this year, Congressional District 1 and 6. And both of these are in ruby red areas. Right. I mean, Trump won, CD won by like 34 points and CD 6 by 30. And our candidates were able to get on the ground to talk about really 4 fundamental issues. Yeah. The cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA. Both of these areas are very heavy with the veterans. We've got 1.3 million veterans that live in Florida. That's not even talking about our active military or family. And so when we start talking again about the issues that are impacting Floridians, we saw a 20-point shift. So we have said consistently that in every Republican in the state of Florida, if you're sitting in an R+15 or less, and you put Donald Trump's priorities before the people of your district, we're coming for you. We've got good candidates that are running for office up and down the ticket. We're encouraging people to run. We've seen almost a 6 times increase of the amount of people that have filled out run for something on our website, almost 600 people since Trump got sworn in that want to run for office here in the state of Florida. So we do see the pendulum is shifting, that the people are frustrated with what's going on. And earlier you're talking about how many people in the state of Florida are going to be impacted by this big bullshit bill. Millions upon millions that are going to get kicked off of their Medicaid. As we know, we don't have Medicaid expansion here because of Rick Scott, who then tried to put an amendment on yesterday to even eliminate the Medicaid reimbursements for the rest of the country. And so it's just the corruption, and all for what? So billionaires can get tax breaks. And as somebody who oversaw the feeding program for 4 years, 1 out of 4 Floridians are food insecure. Those are the people that are working in your offices. Those are your teachers. Those are everyday Floridians that are never going to tell you that they didn't have dinner last night. They're going to come to work. They're going to stomach the situation. And those are the people that they're attacking and hurting. And so there's going to be consequences at the ballot box. Only, and I say this very candidly, only if we as Democrats get our shit together, meaning that we've got good candidates, we're organizing, we're staying on message, and we're talking about the populist message that got Trump reelected and the New York, primary. It's all about the system is broken, that the everyday Americans don't feel government is working for them. And the extremes on all sides isn't the solution or the answer, but we have to, as Democrats, be listening to the message that the people of this country continue to send.
Well, and when you say that Democrats have to get their shit together, I think you would have a lot of Democrats who would agree with you and say that they don't, that you don't have your shit together. Not you personally, but the party does not have its shit together. And I think some of it is, it's just naturally going to work itself out over time. But I think the party is making a mistake if it doesn't sense the real anger and almost rage that exists out there, not just among Democrats, but among independents, even Republicans. And people are just tired of this shit. They're just tired. They're just tired of it.
They're tired.
They might not be able to put their finger on it, but they're
But they know
tired of it.
they're pissed. But they know they're pissed, and they know that they're pissed while they're working. You know, single mom working 2 jobs, just barely making ends meet. May have to go on SNAP benefits every once in a while because she's just short this month, and pissed off when she sees politicians, you know, going and flying private planes to DC or fundraisers to Martha's Vineyard or what all the games that get played, and it's on both sides, you know. And I always say that, you know, but people are pissed. They said, whatever happened to somebody representing me? When are you coming home and doing constituency services? How are you showing up and not just asking for my vote, but caring about me throughout the year, not just when I can do something for you? So people are pissed. The system's broken. You know, when I first, you know, not to change, but like when I first announced when I was running for Commissioner of Agriculture in 2018, I talked about the juxtaposition of the overregulation of cannabis and the underregulation of firearms. And how is that showing that government is working for the people when those 2 issues just make no logical sense?
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, to me, I've been saying, you know, for the longest time that what we're witnessing right now in this country is I've described it as the Great American Pushback. And it doesn't really have a party label attached to it. And I think we saw that, you know, demonstrated in the No Kings rallies that took place over the country last month. And as James was saying, we're going to see it in these upcoming elections in Virginia and New Jersey. And my goodness, they just made Zohran Mamdani, it looks like the mayor of New York. And so there's a sort of an electrical current. And whoever taps into it, and Donald Trump's very good at tapping into it. He does it usually with hatred and divide and conquer politics. But the Democrats can do it by looking out for regular folks, working folks. I think that's the recipe for success.
Yeah, but, and I also think that the part of the recipe too is understanding that we are still in the FDR social contracts. And you know, I had a really heart-to-heart conversation with one of our Black leaders at an MLK parade in January, and he turned to me and he said, "Miss Fried," who I've known for years, and he's like, "Listen, at the end of the day, look around you. My people are still living in Section 8 housing. We're still looking at the constructions, you know, the construction sites across the street. We still have liquor stores that have graffiti all over it. The social contracts aren't working. You know, how do we change the conversation with America of what it means to have a relationship with the people and government? Government does great things, but we also have to make sure there's checks and balances, and we never forget who put us into office to begin with. And I think that too many times the conversations are just, here's another handout, here's another program, instead of like taking a real step backwards and asking the people, what are you looking for from your government? Instead, the Democrats have been too consistently pushing it on people instead of letting the issues come to us. And I think that's what we're really trying to do here in Florida, is make sure we're constantly communicating with the electorate, the people on the ground, talking about the issues that are impacting them and finding solutions, not just speech about how to make their lives better.
Interesting. All right. Well, hey, Nikki Fried, it's great to talk to you. It's been a little while, but thank you so much for doing this, and keep your eyes on that Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, my God, this is just some sick, twisted stuff happening down there, but I know you're on the case. Nikki, great to see you. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate the time.
Have a good afternoon.
All right. You too. You as well. That was just a great comprehensive discussion. And I was curious what she thought about the party's prospects in the state of Florida, because it has been sort of in the doldrums there for some time now. And she basically, you know, said it the way it should be said, which is we got to get our shit together. It's sort of a larger message for the country as a whole. And I do want to get into, because I talked about it a little bit with James, talked about it a little bit with Nikki there, but I just want to take a few moments to touch on this Alligator Alcatraz bullshit nonsense that Trump is using. He's using as a distraction. I mean, I'm writing about this. I'm going to put out a Substack later. They know in Washington that the so-called big beautiful bill, the big boulder of bullshit, the big debt explosion bill that they just passed in the Senate, now it's got to go to the House. And Trump was saying today, I don't even know if it's going to get done by July 4th. That might be tough. That's his admission that it's going to take a while to get out of the House. They know that it's a stinker. They know that it's a barf bag full of giveaways to the rich and powerful in this country. And because of that, they are going back to their tried and true distraction, and that is to play the politics of cruelty with this alligator Alcatraz. But I do want to call attention to something that Trump said earlier today, and I believe, Matt, we might have the clip. It's when Trump was asked about, the fact that, they're basically saying, yes, if a migrant tries to escape detention at this facility, that migrant might get eaten by an alligator. If we have that clip, let's play it. I want to talk about this.
But alligators, we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%.
Now, I saw that video, and first of all, it's horrific. And as James was saying earlier on in the program, the evangelical supporters of Donald Trump I think they need to search their souls and ask them, would Jesus do this? Remember those wristbands? What would Jesus do? Would Jesus want migrants to be eaten by alligators in this country? Is that part of their code as a Christian in America and their support for Donald Trump? To have the idea that we're going to have migrants being eaten by alligators in this country. But the other thing I want to point out in this clip, and maybe we have to show it again so I can get this point across, Donald, and I know this from covering him at the White House, he does not laugh very much. Folks, have you picked up on this before? When he talks, he doesn't laugh. He makes jokes. He makes comments that he finds to be funny, but he doesn't laugh very often. And if somebody makes a joke and he hears it, he doesn't laugh that much. Publicly, just not a big laugher. You won't find a whole lot of footage of him laughing. But the idea of a human being, a migrant in this country, being eaten by an alligator, let's play that clip one more time. You actually hear him chuckle. If we can play it one more time. Oh, maybe not. Hang on. Did I break the machine? If we can play it one more time, we can. If we play it one more time, you can hear it.
Alligators, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%.
He's laughing. He's laughing about the idea. He's laughing about the idea of human beings being eaten by alligators. And I only raised this point, yes, to the Substack viewer says it's beyond vile. It is beyond vile. This is the president of the United States making comments and delighting in the idea that somebody who tries to escape this gulag in the Everglades would be eaten by an alligator. And it just reminds me of the parable that Trump would recite out on the campaign trail, the snake. He would talk about the snake. And Trump earlier today was not only talking about the alligators, talking about the snakes in the Everglades that would also be there greeting these migrants who are being put into detention there. And Trump would go out on the campaign trail, and I used to hear this time and again. We would hear this. He would tell this little story about the woman who picked up the snake and brought the snake home, and the snake bit her, and then the woman would die, and she asked the snake, why did you do this? And, the snake says, you knew I was a snake when you let me in. And it seems to me that story is relevant in talking about Donald Trump. I'm not the first to make this observation. I won't be the last. But what kind of a person makes jokes and laughs and delights in the idea of migrants being eaten by alligators and snakes in this country? Probably a snake himself. And so I just wonder, as James was saying earlier on in the program, I just wonder, at what point do we start searching our souls in this country? At what point? Was it not when the 4-year-old with cancer, who was a U.S. citizen, was sent out of the country with his mixed status mother? Was it not that? Maybe it'll be when one of these migrants, because he or she can't deal with the living conditions there. I mean, it's how hot is it in the Everglades? And they're going to be living in glorified trailers and cages. What happens when one of these migrants says enough is enough and tries to escape and is attacked by alligators? Will the public, will the MAGA supporters, will the evangelical Christians who support Donald Trump, will that be it? Will that be the moment when you say enough is enough? And I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking the only reason why I would want to keep this facility, if you want to call it that, up and running in Florida, and believe me, I would shut it down in a heartbeat. But the only reason why it might make sense to not completely shut it down and tear it down is if there is a way sometime in the future, after the year 2028, heading into 2029, when the president of the United States is held accountable for his actions, if he's broken laws as the president of the United States, and I know the Supreme Court says, oh, you can have the get out of jail free card, courtesy of Chief Justice John Roberts and so on. But might it not be a fitting retirement home for Donald Trump, Alligator Alcatraz, after he leaves the White House in January of 2029, if he leaves the White House in January of 2029, might be a fitting retirement home for him, Alligator Alcatraz. Something to think about. You knew I was a snake when you let me in. That was the story he used to tell out on the campaign trail. Feels very relevant today. My thanks to James Carville for joining me today. Always enjoy his insights. Really appreciate his time. My thanks to the Florida Democratic Party Chair, Nikki Fried, for joining me as well. Interesting to hear what she has to say about how that party is trying to make a comeback in the state of Florida. That is no small task. And thanks to all of you for watching, and thanks for sharing your comments. There were a couple of questions in there, a couple of comments in there that I thought were just absolutely spot on. And so I wanted to share them with all of you today. But thanks, as always, everybody, for tuning in. Still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.